Hey, this is Joey, but I guess I should say this before we start the video. If you or a loved one are going through something with the following on screen, I would click off and if you call somebody, get some help, because you're not alone. I suffer through this. You know, depression, anxiety, she's a bitch. So, just so you know, there's always people out there that can help you. There's hotlines that you can call. You can always go to a therapist. You can always just talk to someone. So, yeah, let's start this video then. Video games are a gateway into another reality. Think of Tetris with puzzles or Mario with platformers. But, you know, some games aren't like that. You know, there's first-person shooters, pretty gory, and there's horror games that are supposed to be a thriller, but only one game, I think, really tackles mental health. Now, if you don't know what mental health is, I'll put the description of it, of what it is, but basically, it sucks. Everybody goes through something like this, but I think a game that really does justice is Cry of Fear. If you don't know what Cry of Fear is, it's made by Team Psych Scholar back in like 2013. Well, that was the release date on Steam, but it's a psychological survival horror first-person shooter, and I think this game tackles mental health the best way it can with being a survival horror. But yeah, so I guess before I go on, do buy the game. It is free. It's definitely worth it. There is going to be spoilers, so if you do not want to be spoiled, play the game and come back to see what I have to say about this beautiful game. So let's get into it. So I think before we go on, we should probably start with the main character. This is Simon Hendrickson. He is our main protagonist of Cry of Fear in probably every edgy Twitter profile picture ever, I guess. I don't know. But basically, he is the best protagonist for any game like this. Because unlike, I don't know, Chris Redfield, Kyle Crane, Leon Kennedy, he's just our normal guy. He's just like one of us. One of us, it sounds dumb. He is just like everyone else in this world. He goes through things, he has to deal with it. Probably the worst thing ever that could happen to him, honestly. But, you know, we just gotta deal with it. That's just how life works. As we continue on, sorry for that little ramble. But, the game takes place in Sweden, and basically the story starts off with Simon monologuing, talking about how he feels alone, how he doesn't feel like he can get help anymore. Just then, tragedy strikes. Simon is hit by a car, making him paralyzed from the waist down. With this new disability, he goes to therapy to cope with it. There he meets Dr. Purnell, his therapist. Now, what we learned later on in the story is that his therapy doesn't really work with Simon. Simon's a different type of person. So what the doctor prepares is a book. Basically, Simon were to write down his thoughts and how he felt about this whole thing. And the doctor thought it was a good idea. Well, I would say a good idea if this game didn't fucking exist. But yeah, what Simon ends up doing is the book becomes his reality. So yeah, we don't play as Simon in the real world. We play as Book Simon, a manifestation of how he feels currently. That brings on the survival horror aspect. There are enemies in the game that almost seem human-like and, for a glance, seem like actual people that we could bump into in the real world. But, you know, they're monsters. They're people that have been monster-fied, zombie-fied, whatever you want to call it. And there's actually lore behind this reason. Most of it being how the normal enemies with hammers are metaphor on how Simon would think regular people would judge him across the street. And then, there's the enemies that are in air with beds. That's supposed to be a metaphor on how he feels bedridden. He can't move with his legs. Even the bosses, the one with the chainsaw, I forget his name, but that's supposed to be a metaphor on how he lost his legs. Or the big guy with the giant spiked hammer in the second boss fight, that's supposed to be a metaphor for him getting hit by the car. It's just amazing how all these little details and metaphors can be put into a single game that was made in 2013 and made from the Gold Source engine, which came out in 1998, I believe. And this game does look good, I will grant it that. So, other than that, the enemies are great, characters phenomenal. What else can we talk about? Well, let's talk about the choices. In Cry of Fear, you get two major choices. You either deal with your grief from your girlfriend, or not move on from it, or trust Dr. Purnell, or not. These will affect the ending of Cry of Fear, and I would probably get off if you're still watching. Basically, if you don't trust Sophie, or don't trust the doctor, and you just, don't deal with your girlfriend, Simon becomes bitter and angry, almost having to not deal with it. At the end of the game, Simon kills himself. And during this part of the game, you fight Book and real Simon. So you play as Book Simon, you gotta kill real Simon. How this works is that you are slowly dying because you shot yourself. So as this is going on, the enemies are twisted, the arena's twisted, everything's covered in barbed wire and blood. And then at the end of the boss fight, when you're suffocating real life Simon, your health goes down as they would. It's a boss fight. That's almost like the first game Team Psych Scholar made, or Rumble, Afraid of Monsters, where the final boss fight, if you were to shoot them, it would also inflict damage to yourself. But yeah, say if you deal with Sophie's breakup, but don't trust Dr. Purnell, Simon kills the doctor, then kills himself, and realizes that he has to move on from his girlfriend. But here's the other question, or the other thing that could happen. If you trust a doctor, but not deal with Sophie, Simon kills Sophie, lays her in a bathtub all bloodied, but thanks Dr. Purnell for the help, but says that it couldn't help him. Then the greatest ending that you can get is if you deal with Sophie's breakup and trust Dr. Purnell, you get the best ending, on which Simon goes to his psych ward and gets the help that he needs, but everybody lives. Well, not really. Simon has an episode where he has to fight a disfigured, dangerous Book Simon, wielding the Glock, the TMP, which is the Patreon-only weapon, and the sledgehammer with the flare. If you kill him, you come out of this reality, realizing that you killed 2 police officers that were coming to check on Simon because Dr. Purnell was worried. This is a great ending. Why? Because it's not like other endings where the hero and protagonist come out triumphant and hallelujah or whatever. It shows off that it's still a bad ending, and I think that's great. So it's just great on how these endings can really show off. And yeah, that's just with Cry of Fear, I guess. It deals with multiple stuff, like you feel lonely all the time. That could be a sign of depression. Anxiety is how you're always on edge. You don't know what's going to happen. You feel worried. You feel anxious. And of course, suicide is a rampant thing with Obviously, Sophie killing herself by jumping off a building. The man in the tunnels with a shotgun that shot himself. And of course, I guess you could say the guy that overdosed on pills in the apartment. This game really does tackle hard stuff. So I'm glad that games like this exist, because without them, we wouldn't really have a grasp on the mental health of a person. So I kind of want to thank the people who made this game, Rumble, Team Psych Scholar. I think they did a phenomenal job with talking about stuff like this in a way that doesn't really put it out there. They do give a warning, which I think is cool. So yeah, that's the video I've been waiting a few days to work on. It is 8:15 on a Sunday night. I got school in the morning. But yeah, I'm glad you guys could listen to this video, and I will see you guys later.